Hey guys, welcome back. So for this video, we're actually going to go over specifically how you apply group policy to your OU structure and what that means from a client computer configuration or a user configuration as to how it applies. So what we're looking at here as we reconvene into these videos is the group policy management structure. And we're going to expand the domains, the YouTube ytd.local, which is our domain, and then the OU that we created, which is ytd-251, administrative and non-administrative, computers, domain users, groups, servers, groups. So basically, we want to expand all of these groups and settings. So all the OUs now are exposed for our domain, and now we're going to look and also expand our group policy objects. If you didn't watch the last video went over how to import the CIS benchmarks. If you went through them, chances are you got a couple of errors when you went through them. We'll tackle that information in the next video, but for this video, we're going to just go over specifically the layout as to how to apply them. Presuming, again, that this right now is still either a stage system, not a live system, or it is something that you're doing as a hobby, just want to build one, want to know how to do it. In other words, if there's systems that you've added to this domain already, create a staging OU. And in order to do that, you would just right-click up here and do New Organizational Unit. We'll call it Staging. And see it up here, Staging. Right-click on it, block Inheritance, and then you can apply the policies through there for testing. Then individually add the machines to it, and you can see how they interact or how they react to the testing that you're doing. That said, if you add the machines there and you need to revert the policy because it doesn't work, let's go over that real quick. So what you'll do is go to Command Prompt as admin. You're going to change directory to Windows System 32 Group Policy. And in here, we're going to see nothing because we're on the domain controller. But in your machine, you're going to see likely datastore, machine, and user. And then you're going to see something that says gpt.ini. What you're going to have to do, and I'll put all these inside the description, but you'll have to do del gpt.ini-f for force. That'll delete the gpt.ini. Then you'll need to do rmdir machine/q/s. That'll delete the machine folder. Do the same thing for user and the same thing for datastore. So in other words, just user. And then again, datastore. And then remove the machine. Obviously, remove the machine from that OU. Then GP update after you remove this stuff. So the command to do that is just GP update force. And that will revert you back to what you had prior. Now, that said, if you applied policy configuration that you built yourself and those policies were written in an older system, you'll have to undo what you did. So while you could revert the ones that we have going on here, if this is stuff that you did prior, you may have to revert them with a revision. Or you'll have to write another group policy to overwrite the policy configuration that you have in place and just put it in yet another staging OU, which would also work. At any rate, if you have any problems with that, feel free to leave something in the comments as to what you got going on, and I could give you the breakdown specifically of how to fix that. All right, moving forward. We have policies that we imported. We imported the policies basically for our systems. Hopefully you didn't import things from 2012 R2 if you don't have them, or Windows 7 if you don't have that, or Internet Explorer if you're still running like Windows 10. Obviously you might need IE policies, but if you're running, Windows 11, IE is not there anymore. So at any rate, how this works is these OUs, since we've itemized them for Windows 10 users, computers, Windows 11 users and computers, our server 2019 domain controllers, our client servers, which would be something like a file server, print server, application server. What we do is we go up in here and we find, excuse me, we find computers, we find our desktops, we find our laptops. What we're actually going to do is we're going to create a new organizational unit here and go Windows 10. I create another one and call it Windows 11. So now we have Windows 10 and Windows 11. So what we do here is we go into our Windows 10, link an existing config, and we know that this is a Windows 10 computer configuration. So if we go in here, we can find the computer configuration, and we hit OK, and now it's applied. And we do the same thing for Windows 11. We can link a configuration. So let's find the Windows 11 computer configuration, and we could apply that there. So now we have Windows 10 and Windows 11 computer configurations. Obviously, if we have laptops and they have Windows 10 and Windows 11, you'll do the same thing. You'll just follow it, go through the same thing. Now, if you write the structure slightly different, where you say, you know what, I have a lot of machines that are both Windows 10 and Windows 11, they're all over the place, and you do computers, and then you create a Windows 10 and a Windows 11, and then a desktop underneath it, or in a laptop underneath it, you could link this at the higher level so you don't have to link it at every subdirectory. Again, it depends on what your structure looks like. It'll vary from one system to another. But this gives you more flexibility because now you can write things for Windows 11 or write things for Windows 10, and they don't have to be at the same time. So if you have problems on Windows 10, you need to fix them. You can roll back some changes, do what they have to do. If you have problems on Windows 11 and they don't affect the Windows 10 machines, you can break it up like that. As far as the users, so for instance, we go down here into the non-administrative users for the desktops and the laptops and the tablets. We could apply them the same way, where we could add a new OU for Windows 10, a new OU for Windows 11, and apply it the same way. Under the users, for instance, like we have an accounting department. If I know, for instance, that only Adobe needs to be linked to the accounting users, I could grab the accounting link right there, click OK, and now accounting's done. But if I know that those accounting users not only need Adobe, but need all the other stuff as well, right? So we have Adobe, Acrobat Pro, but maybe they just need Reader. We could change it from one to the other. Or we could add Internet Explorer. We could add the Office 365 apps. We could add, if they're, say, all on Windows 10, we could add the users Windows 10. The users Windows 10 and users Windows 11 are basically the same, so you won't cause any conflict by applying either Windows 10 policy to all of them or Windows 11 policy to all of them. That's just something you learn as you go through this. The other stuff in here, let's see. There's really nothing else that we would need to apply for this, for the sake of this. Obviously, file shares. So eventually we'll get to the point on how to create file shares through Active Directory, through Grouppolicy. Right now we have a policy that's blank that doesn't do anything, but if we know that in the future that these users are going to need access to a file share, we can select that as well and then hit OK. Now all those policies are linked. Now, keep this in mind because this is very important. I see this all over the place, and this tells me how it's the difference between an amateur and a professional. If somebody goes into these subgroups here and right-click and chooses Enforce, we're at the lowest level. That enforcement does absolutely nothing. That only matters if you have something, for instance, up here. Like, for instance, the default domain policy. If I want to enforce this, and I go into staging, and I say I want to link something for testing, like, for instance, we'll just say Internet Explorer 11. We could see Internet Explorer 11 is applied. But if we go into Group Policy Inheritance, the enforced policy, the enforced default domain policy is also applied. And the reason why is because when you have an enforced policy above an OU that has blocked inheritance, the enforced policy will automatically write beyond the blocked inheritance. So you could block inheritance where if we link, say an Adobe policy up here, and we go into staging, we could see that the staging doesn't show the Adobe policy. It doesn't exist because it's not enforced. The same thing could be said is if we remove the enforcement and we refresh, it's not there now either, right? So we just have what's applied. But if we remove the inheritance, then all of the policies show. And the reason why is because we're not enforcing it. Whereas if we enforce it and then we refresh, we'll see the enforced policy is now applied to the inherited block location. That's how this works. If, however, you see down here somebody has enforcement turned on, that just means to me that's a red flag. As an IT person, if I see that, then I go, uh-oh, somebody was in here that didn't know what they were doing. And that's common. A lot of people go into the system and have no idea what they're doing. But that's something that you, as a tech or somebody starting out, could just protect yourself. Don't do that, because it makes it look like you don't know what you're doing, and you don't want to look like you don't. Even if you don't, even if you have no idea and you're using this because this is the first time you're setting this up, that right there will protect you from looking like an amateur. Because anybody else that goes into the system and sees that with the enforcement on the lowest level will think, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. So something to look out for. If you're a professional getting into this and you see enforcement turned on at the low level, you know that chances are there's something in here that's borked because somebody was in here that didn't know what they were doing. If you see it at the upper level enforced and you can't figure out why it is, even with blocked inheritance, it applies, it's because blocked inheritance doesn't block enforced policies. That's what enforcement is for. It's to go past the blocked policy. So for instance, if you had a whole bunch of stuff up here and you wanted to block it, but you had one thing that was in that list that you wanted to apply to the blocked location, you could change it to enforced and it'll force it to actually apply to that one location. It saves you time, it saves you energy having to reinvent the wheel with Active Directory. But it's something to keep in mind of when you look in here, is if you see somebody's doing something funky with the enforcement at the lower level, chances are they don't know what they're doing. So be aware that you're going to probably find problems in the infrastructure. So hopefully this helps you out as far as how you apply them. Once they're applied, if a desktop was in this account or a user's account was in this accounting location in Active Directory, these policies would all apply to that user. So if you're ever curious what's in these policies, if you actually click on them and go to Show All, this will give you the breakdown as specifically as to what this actually does, whether it enables, disables, or configures something. So if we go into Internet Explorer, we go in here, we can see this thing setting the published location for software. It disables autocomplete in the forums. It disables the ability to use complete for usernames and passwords. File share, like I said, right now it's empty. It doesn't do anything. We'll get to that. Office 365 or Office 2019 or Microsoft 365 apps. This will disable all except digitally assigned macros. So basically, if you're running macros from like an Excel 2003 doc, this will break that. You'll have to redo them. They're not going to be signed. They're going to be old. They're not going to be great. You want to set protection. You're going to need to do that as part of the policy if you're doing a STIG build or NIST. It's something to keep in mind that, this is why we have staging, right? You want to stage these policies before you roll them out across an infrastructure that's actually pre-implemented. If this is for testing and purposes and whatnot, perfect. You don't need to do that. But keep in mind that every single one of these changes will change something on those systems, and it can cause issues on end users, which is why you want to stage stuff. You want to test it with end users, so that way they can show you, oh yeah, something's broken after we made this change. And you don't want to do all the changes at once. You want to implement one, let them roll for a week or two. Implement another one, let them roll for a week or two. And always use somebody that complains a lot. If they complain constantly that something is broken, make sure nothing is broken, and you get it in an email writing before you start to implement the policies. And then after the policies are implemented, if they start complaining again, you know that you started out with a solid slate, everything's good, the policy caused the issue. Then you could go back in the policy and figure out what was the root cause of that issue, and then work yourself backwards. In a NIST configuration, that's called an acceptable risk. You'll have to write that out as your POAM, and that will give you your completion on your POAMs. Hopefully this video helps you out. Again, we're going to go deeper into group policy configuration, specifically with the templated policies, the stuff that we imported for Windows 10 and 11, also the stuff that we imported for the servers, how to set up the security groups correctly so that way you can meet NIST, how to undo some of these policy configurations if you just want to maintain a level of security without NIST security, like you don't need to go through compliance. And I might break that up into 2 different videos. But for the sake of this video, I think that this is a pretty good place to stop and hold off. You now have your OUs created. You have your staging created. You know how to import your policies. To remove them, just right-click on them and delete them. It doesn't delete the policy itself. It just deletes it out of the OU you have it attached. So it'll still exist down here. You just deleted it from here. And that's how this works. So give it a test, try it out, like and subscribe, and hopefully within the next couple of days here, I'll get another video uploaded here for getting deeper into NIST configuration, or I might take the high road first, and we might just dig down into how to manually create some group policies, setting up a file server, setting up shares on a file server, and then configuring your client machine so that way they work properly with the new imported policy. Let me know if there's anything in addition to the stuff that would be helpful, or where you guys would like to go from this video. If there's more details or more information I can provide to you, leave them in the comments. I'm sure somebody else or myself in the technical field would be happy to help. So thanks guys, and like, subscribe, and hopefully continue to make you guys videos. All right, take care now.